Hi everyone, this is Morgan Berry. I teach photography and foundations here at UW Stout, and in this video I'm going to start the process of showing you how to make a digital negative. It is a many-stepped process. So here is our starting point. Just as a heads up, this is a multi-step process. I would highly encourage you to watch the whole video, and then as you're going through this process, especially the first time, it's a good idea to just pause the video and move forward incrementally. I picked this image for a few reasons. The big one is that it has a pretty wide tonal range, so you can see there's detail in the highlights and the shadows, and we want to make a digital negative that captures both ends of that spectrum. So I'm going to play you a video of me doing this process. So here is the image open in Photoshop. You definitely want to do this process through Photoshop, not Lightroom. And you can see I'm making a black and white adjustment layer. So this is my way of converting this image to black and white. I like it because you can have such control over how each unique color in your image is translated to grayscale. So for me, my image started with this really heavy, blue gold contrast of color, so I could really, make the highlights pop through pulling around my yellows. I could really adjust the shadows by working with my cyans and my blues. And that amount of control is really helpful for, again, translating the tonal range the way I want it to the digital negative. So with that done, I'm going to flatten the image, and that's again just to keep things simple moving forward. With that adjusted, we can now go to convert this image to the correct profile. So if you look here, it is still in its original profile. I think I grabbed a screenshot of this, so it's a display profile. And we actually want this to be gray gamma 2.2. So I've shifted that here and clicked OK. So now we have an image that's in the correct color space and profile, which is great. We want to adjust the image size next. So we want our negatives to have a relatively high resolution. So I'm going to uncheck this so I'm not changing the size. I'm just moving around the pixel organization. And I'll change this to a resolution of 360. And with that changed, we can recheck the resample button and then make the image the actual physical size we would like the negative itself to be. And again, because we're using these negatives for contact printing processes, whatever size you make the negative is the size that your final print will be. So make that choice intentionally here. You can also specify how you'd like resampling to happen. You can see I chose a method that's for reducing size by cubic sharper. So that should help my image maintain some sharpness during that scaling down. So next we'll do an image adjustment curve. And I know many of you are used to getting to this dialog box from other places. You really want to go from that image drop down to get here. The reason for that is you need to be able to load a preset, and you can get to that by clicking this little wheel and going to load preset. That option is not available to you in the regular curves dialog box. So at this point, I think it's good to pause and talk a little bit about why we're doing this. Why are we loading a curve specific to a process? In my case, I'm picking a curve specific to cyanotype. So the reason we're doing this is so that we can control, again, how values are translated to the digital negative. You can do that in a way that works better for each process. So cyanotypes don't have a very wide tonal range. This curve is meant to adjust the values in your image so that they will churn out the best cyanotype prints possible. So that's why I've downloaded these curves from Bostic and Sullivan, and then you can load them as presets here in Photoshop and hopefully get cyanotypes with a wider tonal range than you would without this process. So that's why we're doing it. Here's how we're going to do it. So when I choose to load preset, clicking that wheel in the curves dialog box, the first time you do this, it will automatically open the curves folder that is probably just hanging out empty on your computer. So you may have put the curve file, that's again the cyanotype curve in my case, in that folder. You may have it on your desktop or in your downloads. Wherever you are, just locate it and choose it. So you can see the curve now. It's kind of a wonky S curve. Even through like just lightly seeing the image behind it, you can see it really kind of flattens out some of the shadows in my image. It really flattens out the highlights. And again, that's just trying to compensate for the limited tonal range of the cyanotype process itself. I'm going to click OK. So we can see it looks kind of muddy, but hopefully that's what's going to give us the best results at the end of this process. So I've had the curve applied at this point. Now I can move on to the next phase of the process, which will be inverting the image. So I'm choosing to go to the image drop-down to do this. I'm going to go down to adjustments and choose invert. You can also use the command I shortcut. Either way, you're going to flip the values in your image, so you're looking finally at something that looks like a negative. The next thing I'm going to do is go to image, drop the image drop-down again, image, rotation, and choose to flip the canvas horizontally. This is another moment where I think it's worth pausing to talk about why are we doing this. So the reason we're going to do this is because we are eventually going to want to, again, use this for contact printing. We want this side of the negative, the side that we're actually going to print on, facing down onto the paper. So we want the image to print with its intended orientation. That's why at some point, flipping it horizontally is a smart move. You can do that here. You can actually also do it in printing, but I always forget if I leave it to that stage. So I'm going to do it right here. This would be a good point to save the image. So I would save a negative specific version of each image. So I'm saying VSC, Vermont Studio Center, cyan negative. So even if I use other processes, I won't have the same curve. So this one should be pretty specific to that process. So if you're following along, congratulations for making it to the end. This is a many steps process, and I know it's easy to get lost. So you've done the editing part. Now all that's left to do is print the negative, which we will explore together in the next video. Thanks, everyone.